Hospitals are meant to be places of healing, where we place our lives in the hands of trained professionals we trust without question. But what if the very people sworn to save us were quietly doing the opposite? Across the world, a small number of doctors have crossed a line so dark that their names remain etched in true crime history. They wore the white coat, spoke with authority, and earned trust effortlessly. And that is exactly what made them so dangerous. These are real cases of medical professionals who use their knowledge not to heal, but to harm, and in ways most of us never see coming. Before we dive deep, here's a quick rundown of the doctors we'll be exposing in this documentary. Individuals who shattered the meaning of the Hippocratic Oath and left a permanent stain on the medical world. Number 1. Dr. Harold Shipman, Britain's Angel of Death. Harold Frederick Shipman was a general practitioner in Hyde, Greater Manchester. Known for his calm manner and attention to detail, he was born in Nottingham and raised in a close religious household. He excelled academically and went on to study medicine at the University of Leeds, graduating in 1970. Shipman married in 1966, had 4 children, and built a reputation as a dedicated family doctor. However, over the course of more than 2 decades, concerns arose regarding a pattern of unusual patient deaths linked to his practice. In 2000, after an extensive investigation and trial, Shipman was convicted on multiple counts related to the unlawful deaths of patients under his care, primarily elderly individuals. A public inquiry later suggested that the number of affected patients may have been far greater. The case shocked the nation and led to major reforms in the UK's medical and death certification systems. But behind this calm and trusted exterior, something deeply troubling was happening. Over more than 20 years, Dr. Shipman built a pattern that no one noticed at first. Many of his elderly patients passed away soon after a home visit or a private checkup with him. Because he was their doctor, families assumed it was natural. And Shipman always had paperwork ready to prove it. His method was silent and calculated. Shipman would visit patients alone, give them what he claimed was a routine pain relief injection, and shortly after, the patient would pass away. As their doctor, he would certify the cause of death as natural. This meant there was rarely suspicion. He controlled both the treatment and the records. There was another shocking detail. Shipman also altered medical files to make it appear that his patients were already very ill. In a few cases, he even forged wills, naming himself as a beneficiary. These actions allowed him to hide in plain sight for years. So how did he finally get caught? The turning point came in the late 1990s when one of his patients, an active and healthy 81-year-old woman named Kathleen Grundy, suddenly passed away. Shipman had written her death as old age, but her daughter, a lawyer, knew something didn't add up. Kathleen was not sick, and strangely, her new will left a large sum of money to Dr. Shipman. This raised a red flag. Kathleen's daughter went to the police, leading to an investigation that uncovered a shocking pattern. Records showed an unusually high number of deaths that happened soon after Shipman's visits. He was arrested, and in 2000, a court found him guilty on multiple charges connected to patient deaths. A later official inquiry estimated that the true number of victims could be around 250, making him one of the most prolific serial offenders in modern history. Our next story takes us to the United States, a case that reads like a true crime thriller, except every chapter is real. Michael Swango, born in 1954, Illinois. Smart, disciplined, charming, the kind of student teachers would point to and say, "He'll achieve great things one day." He was class valedictorian, a top athlete, and graduated with honors. To everyone around him, Swango looked like the perfect future doctor. But even in those early years, there were warning signs most people ignored. While other medical students focused on saving lives, Swango was strangely drawn to death. He volunteered for ambulance duty constantly, but not to help. He was fascinated with watching people in their final moments. Some classmates felt uneasy around him, but no one imagined what he would become. In 1983, Swango began his surgical internship at Ohio State University Hospital. That's when the strange and frightening pattern began. Healthy patients who came in for simple treatments would suddenly deteriorate and die shortly after Swango treated them. Nurses whispered concerns. They saw him give injections that didn't appear on medical charts. They noticed he always seemed excited after a patient coded. Hospital officials launched a small internal inquiry, but nothing came of it. With no solid proof, the hospital simply let Swango go quietly in 1984. No police, no charges, no warning sent to other hospitals. They didn't know it then, but that decision would cost many more lives. After leaving Ohio, Swango took a job as a paramedic back in his hometown of Quincy, Illinois. And it wasn't patients who became his next targets, it was his coworkers. Without thinking twice, his coworkers enjoyed the coffee and snacks he brought to work. But soon after, many of them became seriously sick, feeling lightheaded, throwing up, and suddenly collapsing. One coworker described it as feeling like their body was shutting down from the inside. And that wasn't far from the truth. When authorities searched Swango's home, they discovered harmful substances and evidence linking him to those incidents. In 1985, he was found guilty, not for taking lives, but for causing severe harm to his colleagues, and received a 5-year prison sentence. But here's the unsettling part. Investigators already suspected that some patient deaths from his earlier hospital years were not natural. They just didn't have the proof to confirm it at the time. So the only thing they could hold him accountable for was the harm done to his coworkers. Even after this conviction, the system still wasn't ready for what was about to happen next. After serving just 3 years, Swango was released in 1989. And instead of being blocked from working in healthcare again, he found a way back in. He changed his name to Daniel J. Adams, used altered paperwork, and attempted to wipe his past clean. With a new identity, he returned to the medical field, and once again, hospitals accepted him. From South Dakota to New York, a strange pattern followed him everywhere. People who seemed stable would suddenly take a serious turn for the worse shortly after being under his care. At a hospital in South Dakota, even his own fiancée, Sharon Cooper, began feeling extremely unwell whenever she ate meals he made. After their relationship ended, her health instantly improved. But a few months later, she sadly passed away. Tests from that time showed her system contained dangerous levels of a toxic substance. Later, in New York, Swango joined a well-respected residency program at Stony Brook University. And again, individuals who were not considered critical suddenly lost their lives after treatment during his shifts. Nurses recognized the same unsettling pattern they had seen years earlier in Ohio. This time, hospital leadership ran a deep background check. They discovered his old conviction for harming coworkers and immediately removed him from the program. Swango realized his past was catching up to him. So before authorities could act, he left the country. In 1994, Swango reappeared in Zimbabwe, working at a small mission hospital. Before long, some staff members started to notice situations that didn't seem typical. A local doctor sensed a concerning pattern, especially after a close friend experienced an unexpected health situation soon after visiting Swango's home. Test results showed unusual findings, and the doctor felt it was important to notify the appropriate authorities. In time, this information reached officials in the United States. Eventually, Swango returned to America. In 1997, he was stopped at Chicago's O'Hare Airport, just as he was preparing to travel for a new professional opportunity abroad. It's unsettling to imagine how many more people might have been affected if that journey had continued. Soon after, earlier cases connected to his work were reviewed. Additional analysis helped bring clarity to questions that had remained unanswered for years. In 2000, Swango faced serious proceedings related to several concerning situations involving people under his care. He accepted responsibility for 3 of those situations. However, officials believe the number of concerning cases linked to him may be much higher, possibly around 60. He received a lifelong restriction with no possibility of release. Today, he is held in a high-security facility in the United States. Our next story isn't about a doctor who harmed for pleasure, but a doctor who believed he was helping, and in doing so, crossed a line that shocked the world. Dr. Jack Kevorkian, a name that tabloids soon twisted into Dr. Death. Born in Michigan to Armenian immigrant parents, Jack was brilliant from a young age. He grew up fascinated with medicine, the human body, and one question that most people avoid: should a person have the right to choose when their suffering ends? As a trained pathologist, Kevorkian saw families watch their loved ones fade away slowly, painfully, and without dignity, and he became obsessed with one mission: to offer what he called a peaceful exit for those who no longer wanted to fight. But the way he went about it would turn him into one of the most controversial figures in medical history. By the late 1980s, Kevorkian designed a device unlike anything seen before. A homemade machine built from everyday medical equipment. He claimed it allowed terminal patients to end their own suffering with the push of a button. In 1990, in a quiet park in Michigan, Kevorkian used his device for the first time with a woman named Janet Adkins, who was at the early stages of memory loss and feared the loss of her identity. This moment, done openly, set off a nationwide storm. News channels erupted. Was this compassion, or was it crossing into something darker? His medical license was revoked, but Kevorkian didn't stop. Over the next few years, more and more people sought him out. He said he wasn't ending lives, he was granting choice. Families saw him as a savior who ended unbearable pain. But critics said he was playing with life itself, too eager to push boundaries, too ready to be the one holding the controls. Courtrooms became his second home. He was taken to trial multiple times, and each time he walked free. Until one day, he pushed the limit too far. September 1998, Kevorkian didn't just assist a patient's last wish. He personally took action, and he recorded it on camera. Then handed the tape to a national news program. He dared authorities to act. This wasn't a quiet act of mercy behind closed doors. This was a direct challenge to the law, to ethics, and to the medical world. And this time, the legal system responded firmly. Kevorkian was convicted and sent to prison. He served 8 years, still believing he was right, still claiming he was standing up for dignity, choice, and compassion. After his release in 2007, under strict conditions, he stepped away from involvement. He passed away in 2011, leaving behind a legacy that still divides the world. Hero? Villain? Or a doctor far ahead of his time? One thing is certain: Jack Kevorkian forced society to look at a question we rarely dare to ask: who gets to decide how a life should end? Our next story takes us to West Philadelphia, to a small clinic on a quiet street, a place that many in the neighborhood once believed was offering help to those with nowhere else to turn. For decades, Dr. Kermit Gosnell was known as a physician who served low-income families. His doors were always open, his fees were low, and he spoke proudly about helping his community. On the outside, he appeared to be a man of service, but behind those doors, something far more disturbing was taking place. By the late 2000s, whispers began to spread. Former staff and patients spoke of unsettling conditions inside the clinic, equipment that looked outdated, rooms that didn't feel clean, and practices that didn't seem right. Complaints reached authorities, and in 2010, a joint team of investigators arrived at the clinic. What they discovered felt like a scene from a nightmare. The facility was in disarray, rooms were poorly kept, medication was mishandled, and the environment was shockingly unprofessional. Investigators found items stored in ways that raised serious ethical and legal concerns, and the clinic's condition alone made seasoned officers step back in disbelief. It didn't look like a place of care. It looked like a chamber of neglect. The media soon called it the House of Horrors. As the investigation unfolded, former employees stepped forward. They spoke of procedures carried out far beyond legal time limits, of patients left in unsafe conditions, of decisions made for speed and profit, not safety or dignity. Some spoke through tears, recalling moments they wished they had reported sooner. Then came the most haunting testimonies, accounts of late-stage procedures where outcomes no longer fit within the boundaries of medical or moral law. Staff claimed that in some cases, signs of life appeared when no one expected them, and what happened next crossed every line of care and humanity. The city, the medical community, and the country were stunned. In 2013, Dr. Kermit Gosnell stood trial. The courtroom was tense, a battle of ethics, law, and morality. Gosnell presented himself as a misunderstood caregiver, but prosecutors painted a very different picture, a man who placed money above lives and routine above compassion. Witness after witness described scenes that left jurors visibly shaken. The verdict was decisive. Gosnell was found guilty on multiple serious charges, including the loss of life of 3 infants during late procedures and the death of a woman in his care due to unsafe sedation. He received life in prison, ensuring he would never walk free again. Even during sentencing, he sat calm, almost detached, as if he still believed he had done nothing wrong. Last but not least, Dr. Marcel Petiot, Paris. The 1940s, a city under the shadow of war, fear, and betrayal. In these dark streets, a well-spoken doctor named Marcel Petiot presented himself as a man of hope, a war veteran, a physician, someone who claimed to stand against the occupying forces. To the desperate, he offered not medicine, but a way out. He introduced himself to those seeking to flee the Nazi-controlled city under a false name, Dr. Eugène. His promise was tempting, a secret route to freedom in South America. Safe passage, new identities, and a chance to start again. All someone had to do was trust him and pay his fee. Families, resistance members, and those marked for persecution, frightened and running out of options, placed their lives in his hands. They never reached their destination. Behind the doors of Petiot's townhouse, the story took a sinister turn. Visitors arrived with hope, bags packed, valuables hidden in their coats, believing they were hours away from escape. But instead of protection, they met a carefully crafted trap. Authorities later learned that the medical checkups Petiot insisted on before travel were never meant to protect anyone. What happened inside those rooms, behind closed doors, was designed to ensure no one ever spoke of his operation again. Petiot kept what his clients carried: money, jewelry, documents, and the people themselves simply disappeared. When Paris was liberated in 1944, questions about these vanishings finally caught up with him. A group confronted Petiot's home, and when officials entered, they made a discovery that shook France to its core. Evidence of numerous missing people was found within the property, silent proof of a horrifying scheme masked as a rescue mission. French newspapers quickly gave him a name that would haunt history. Dr. Satan. Petiot was arrested and put on trial in 1946. Even then, he smirked, claiming he had only removed enemies of the nation. But the court saw through his lies. The testimonies, the items recovered in his home, the stories of families who never saw their loved ones again, it was undeniable. He was found guilty and sentenced. That same year, France ensured he would never hurt another soul again. To this day, Petiot stands as one of the most chilling figures of occupied France. A man who used the chaos of war, the trust of the vulnerable, and the authority of his white coat to lure victims into a trap disguised as salvation. He didn't just take lives. He took hope. The 5 stories you've heard share one disturbing truth. Trust, the most sacred bond between doctor and patient, was weaponized. Each of these medical professionals wore the symbols of care: the white coat, the stethoscope, the calm voice of authority. But behind that image, they hid motives that broke the very oath their profession stands upon. Their actions changed the world around them. In the UK, new safeguards were introduced to monitor unusual death certifications after the Shipman case. In the US, hospitals tightened background check systems to prevent another Swango. The Kevorkian saga forced lawmakers and citizens to face the ethical storm surrounding end-of-life decisions. The Gosnell case led to stronger oversight and inspections of clinics to protect patient safety. And in France, the Petiot tragedy became a lasting reminder of how easily power can be abused when fear and chaos silence accountability. But here is the truth that must be said. These 5 are the exception, not the rule. The overwhelming majority of doctors dedicate their lives to healing, comfort, and compassion. Their work saves millions. Their sacrifices deserve respect. Yet, stories like these serve as a warning. Even in places built to protect life, darkness can sometimes slip through. Because evil doesn't always show up with a mask, a weapon, or a threat. Sometimes, it wears a white coat and a gentle smile.